whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you are lucky enough to be doing it to, I am doing it here today, watching the kids' football training while I pump out a little bit of info. This is the T54, and I wouldn't like to call this a masterclass because I'm not really a master in this tank. I do, however, run this tank solo more than just about any other tank I have in the garage, and it hangs around that 70% win rate, plus or minus 1%, pretty comfortably. It's just a superbly strong tank. I want to brush up on three things here. I want to talk about some basics. I want to talk about why it's strong, and I want to give you some examples of things you might want to do to up your survivability and your success rate in this tank. Now, basically, always subscribe and like the videos. Don't forget that. This is a patron-sponsored post as well. If you want to sponsor on Patreon, blah, 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 blah. There'll be a link here on the screen. Now, the T54, what's so good about it? Well, it's got great damage per minute numbers. It's got excellent mobility. It's got superb penetration on its heat rounds, in excess of 300 millimeters of penetration on its heat rounds. And it's got an incredibly strong turret and very strong upper glacis. Basically, it's an overpowered tank. But there's some things people do wrong with this tank. Now, we're going to touch on the first thing people do wrong, and that's angling the tank. You have to angle the tank slightly to the left or the right of incoming fire. That increases the effective armour of your upper glacis to the point where quite often you will bounce shells. That's simple stuff, but this is something I see people miss all the time. If you angle the tank to a tank like this, a lower tier heavy tank, or an IS-6 who only has minimal amounts of penetration on his APCR, they will quite often not be able to pen your upper glacis or lower glacis at all. And that might sound horrifyingly simple, but the reason I mention it is that there is nothing worse than losing a game on a last shot where you're both on exceptionally low hit points because you bled hit points to targets like lower tier mediums and heavies who couldn't really pen you if you played smart. Hit points you didn't need to give up. Now, the other thing that you really need to improve if you want to drive the 54 well is your brawling. Now, we're going to run through this quick little brawl I have with the Leopard PTA very, very fast so that you see how it looks in real time, and then I'm going to talk you through it in slow motion. And basically, I'm going to jink, which is the first part of the game just here, and I'm also going to really focus on staying as close as humanly possible, track to that PTA, even to the point where I'm going to do little circles here, reversing the tank, completely going under his gun. And I'm going to talk you through why that's the case and why it's really important against tanks like this PTA, E50Ms, E50s, M46 patterns, anyone who has troubles getting the gun down really, really quickly. You're a very low profile tank. A lot of these other tanks don't have great gun depression, or if they do, they're still very tall and you can slide underneath it. Now, the jink is the first part. This is here. We're going to go straight forward. As his turret's traversing towards me, I'm going to pull back the direction I came from, and I get a bounce on the front. Second part, I get track to track with the enemy. Now, it's a super mobile tank, and he has very little armor, so staying track to track, all he can shoot at is my turret. Now, his turret ring is damaged, so he's having issues already, and you'll see me staying under the gun there. His gun is constantly stuck pointing at my turret. He can't depress it far enough to actually get shots in. All the time we stay underneath the gun, track to track, next to them. This will frustrate E50s, M46 patterns. Heavy tanks hate it. They absolutely hate it. M103s, T110E5s, E100s especially. You can take out tanks that are taller than you with absolute impunity once you get good at this tactic. Of course, you've always got to be aware of what's going on around you, and that's what I want to talk about here with the 54. I talked about that incredibly low profile and how that can be really, really useful when you're brawling and such, but it's also really useful when you're hiding out in little folds in the ground, basically. Now, this pattern comes up. The rest of my team doesn't do much in this game. I end up with a whole lot of tanks around me over here. You are very low to the ground. When they push up on my right, they're pushing up on my left. You have to stay map aware. I can't stress this enough. In a tank like the 54, if you are map aware, and you are constantly readjusting your armour and where your cover is at, where your hard cover is at, and by hard cover I mean the hill, which is just to my right here and to my left, then you can totally not so much bounce shots, but negate shots. You don't give them shots on target, or if they get shots on target, it's never really simple stuff. Now I'm keeping an eye on the map, the IS-8's there. You can see I put a shot on him. I am moving backwards and forwards. I'm watching my mini-map, and when I see that those two tanks there in the red are moving up, I move back to them. He's not looking at me, however, he's looking across, but I'm still able to move backwards and forwards with this hill to the point where the guys on my right cannot get shots on. This is what allows the 54 to be so inhumanly aggressive. You can drive this tank really, really hard, and it won't suffer the consequences that most other tanks will, because you can see how strong that armour is there. We're bouncing shots. You've basically got a tank that's almost like a T29 hull down. It's so strong and hard to penetrate, and yet you've got the upper glacis of an FV4202. So you can be aggressive like this, and as long as you're aware of where things are, like we missed that one, but you can't dodge them all, you can be really, really successful. This is what I'm talking about with regards to the tank's low profile. There's a very, very small concrete wall surrounding this dojo in front of us. And remember the huge heat penetration this tank has. It's just brutally effective. We are basically at the same level as the wall, so they're not seeing any of our drive wheels or anything that they can pen here, this E75. We can switch to heat and completely penetrate his frontal glacis. Even though he's angling, he can't really effectively out-angle the heat. He can only see our exceptionally sloped upper glacis and our red turret with incredibly thick armour profile. We're going to switch to AP for the last round into the top of his hatch. Now, we're going to roll forward because there's a PTA there on my left. I've figured out that's the PTA because I've looked at the screen. I know there's only one tank left that wouldn't be visible after firing from that range. It's going to be the PTA. Remember what I talked about where with heavies that are really tall, we stay right next to them? Look how quick I am to stay joined at the hip to this IS-3. He's got a slow turret traverse of 20 degrees versus my traversability. I'm not going wide on him all the time. I'm staying really, really close. I don't want to get wide. The PTA turns up. I'm going to use him to hide me and keep getting shots on, and you can't do it forever. You can't always win them, but you give yourself the best opportunity. And we missed this shot. I don't know where it goes, but we certainly bounce another shot, angle the upper glacis, catch one on the track. That didn't go in. But you see how we're joined at the hip to that IS-3 defender. We never gave him the chance to go wide and get shots in. You've got to learn to get track to track in the T54. That absolutely low profile, that super strong turret makes it incredibly difficult for tanks, especially if they've got a low turret traverse, like the 20 degrees of an IS-3 defender or the 16 degrees in a T29 or those kind of things. Now this is, I'm actually in a platoon here with Hoodie. Very good mate of mine from the Storm clan. He actually lives just down the road from me. He's a great bloke. You might have seen him on the streams. He's in the Type 61. Now this game will illustrate a couple of really key points. And I'm going to use two games from the exact same spawn on the exact same map that have very different attack routes. Now the camo, I didn't mention the camo. The camo on this tank is simply outstanding as well. It's as good as anything else in its tier. It's an incredibly strong tank. IS-3 is coming up. Now, your worst part of your tank is your penetration values, but if you wait on lower tier heavies like that, you can always get the shots on. But the camo is outstanding. I'm behind a bush. He is spotted by someone else, so I'm not getting spotted until that second shot. We're just moving upwards, taking shots as we want, because we've got that super strong turret. We're still hull down here, so anyone looking to get shots on us from the right-hand side as we look is going to really struggle because all they can see is a very strong upper glacis and that very strong turret. Now, something you can do in most mediums, T54 is nothing special with this, but most medium tanks is called feeding the veggie patch. And by that, I mean the guys that aren't great players, but who do, however, run TDs or something and sit in spawn. If you find a strong hull down position like this where you can keep spots on and keep shots on target, then you'll be able to get support fire from the guys behind you without them being spotted once they fire. If I was to leave here and roll around to my left, then the guys behind me, once they fired as these guys moved down the hill, would become visible and they'd be dead in no short order. We are in just the absolute mayor's office here. This is as good as it gets in terms of a position for a T54. We are able to stay hull down. We have cover on all sides. It is fantastic. That T54 there, you'll see I switched to HE, to heat rather, because I can't pen him. He's giving Hoodie all kinds of strife. He's hull down. Very hard for Hoodie to be there and not be hit. He's very accessible to all these other tanks up top as well from that position there. They can get shots on him. So we're now talking about a position here where we're still quite strong. We've got Hoodie on our left and he's taken a little bit of heat for us. But the 54, as you can see, is under absolutely no pressure whatsoever. The only issue we could have is this 54 up here moves up, because there is a Yag Tiger there, and he moves up and the Yag Tiger moves up and we're going to get pressured. Now Hoodie's had to abandon the flank because that's exactly what's happened, and very soon we'll have to make our own moves in that direction or we'll be in strife. So I'm going to turn down here and swap positions with Hoodie, and you're going to see the T54 do a whole other thing here. We're going to side scrape with the tank, okay? We're going to angle it off this side here, and we're going to side scrape back and forwards because we have a very strong tank, and you're going to see a T54 down there doing the wrong thing. He is coming out exposing his drive wheel. Now it's not an easy shot, and it's certainly not a shot that you'll hit every day of the week, but that 54 is going to expose his drive wheel. Now, I hate that. It looks clear, hits the dirt. He has absolutely no shots on us. He's going to get our track. We're not even going to bother repairing it. We have very good perks for repairs, and we're not going to waste a kit on that. And there we go. We get our first one in. We're just side scraping off, and you can side scrape at a great angle with this tank. You want to be careful. If you were him side scraping back, because he is lower than us, the armour would be slightly flattened out if, as you see here, and heat would go through very quickly, but we don't have to have any worries about that at all. We've got plenty of pen there when we use it, and you can just see if you're patient, we're constantly bouncing shots, and we're still putting shots in on him. So he's thinking, well, you can see how hard it is, even with 310 millimeters of penetration, 310, 320 millimeters of penetration, still hard to penetrate that turret. So switch to HE. We've only got 2 rounds of HE left. We used a little bit up top, but immediately has an effect. 154 damage on that HE shot. We're going to duff the next one, but we'll roll on down. There's a Yag Tiger around the corner, but if he moves up, we're in all kinds of strife. So what we're going to do is roll straight through, and there's the Yag. I'm going to get one. We're pretty sure he was there. He's playing possum. You don't engage. We're going to move straight through. And that 54 is our prime target, because once we're through there, we've taken a shot in the Yag. We're away. He cannot hit us if we don't go out. That's what I love about playing medium tanks, and tanks like this in particular, is you can be creative. Like this shot here. We're going to dodge the Yag, and he's not even going to be our target. We're still going for that 54. We've made him a one shot for our good mate Hoodie, and the Yag is still stuck with us here. He cannot bring us to target. Hoodie is now putting shots in the back. We've got this shot if we want it. It's all over now, bar the shouting. So that's a great spot for a tank like the T54. So quick, so mobile, can hull down, can do all kinds of things. We track him, as is our want, because we're not idiots. We like to track our heavies and our TDs. Makes life a lot easier when you get round behind them and don't have to worry about taking shots. Let's have a look at it if we have no one supporting us and we're here on our lonesome. And I want to show you this video in particular, not because it's anything particularly amazing. We do a nice little bit of side hugging on an M103, but more because it shows that if you can be creative with the 54, if you can trade time and space for damage, you will do very, very well. I knocked the fence down because it's really frustrating, that fence, when you're trying to get shots on up the top. The rest of the team, for some reason, the lemming trains the middle, the lot. I don't know why, they just do. And you can see here again, I'm not platooned up. I run this tank solo an awful lot. It's so fun, it's so special. And I've been wanting to do a video like this for ages because I see them everywhere. They're like cockroaches. They are so widely used. But wargaming balances on overall stats. And people play this thing so badly that the overall stats, they just don't go up. So people that can actually get some juice out of the tank get these incredible machines, and people that don't know how to use it just waste these incredible machines. And this 103 has been incredibly aggressive. He does not know that there are not other people behind me, but he's just driven hard down here. He gets followed by an IS, and I'm going to ask the pertinent question of my team: where the F are you guys? Because really, where are they? Where the freak are you guys is what I'm saying. We're in a real spot of bother here, okay? We're going to get shots up here. We're wasting our heat around there, but it's no big deal. And you can see we're still very strong, still bouncy, but I know that 103 is going to bounce here, so I'm going to trade a bit of space for a better position. And you'll see right there, my upper glacis is so well angled now that it's going to be quite bouncy. Now, I'm below that M103 though, so if he fires heat, he will get through that upper glacis, as you can see there, because he's flattened the armour out. But we've traded a little bit of space without giving up our position, and we're making them pay for every single centimetre they take. There's another one into that IS, and now the M103 has to come down. Then we've got a faster rate of fire. We're trying to just grab a shot out of him. There we go. Angle that upper glacis again, and we get a free shot into him. Happy days. Trade space for damage. As he comes to us, we are still getting shots. What I want to do now is get side onto him. We've given him a shot. We've taken a shot, but we've got him on a rate of fire. We are going to lock him in, wheel to wheel. One into his side and back up and jink backwards and completely ruin him. By the time he turns around and starts moving forward, we're under the gun again. So that's utilising a few of the key concepts there. You want to always trade space for time. You want to hull down for as long as possible. You can switch up to heat and pen absolutely anyone you want. And if people don't like that, then sucks to be them. It's not a game of let's all be fair and let's play World of Jousting Sticks. It's World of Tanks Blitz. And they only count wins when you win. They don't count how you win them. They just count how many you won. And we hull down. It's got great firepower. It's got great DPM. It's got a lovely little bit of alpha. It's a really, really, really strong tank. And I think that if you've been struggling with it or you're about to get it, you should be looking at a video like this and taking some of it on board and trying to throw it into your gameplay. And if there's only two things I could suggest that you take out of this whole experience, it is one, that you learn to angle the tank correctly at all times and find positions where you only expose that angled upper glacis and your turret. And two, if you are brawling anyone, find the way to get track to track and brawl around their body. You are doing your best work. You're like a body puncher. You are not someone that wants to sit back and land jabs. You want to get in close to the body and you want to work your way up and down the ribs without them actually getting to turn and hit you at all. And if you do that, you are going to be exceptionally happy with the way this tank plays. It is far and away the best pound for pound medium in the game, in my opinion. This and the Comet, they're my two go-tos if I've got a solo and a medium and have a bit of fun. I think they're incredibly, incredibly effective tanks. The Object 140 is probably my favourite tier 10 medium because it plays a lot like a T54. A little bit light, better DPM and such, but not as strong effective armour for its own tier. Anyway, boys and girls, I've been Bushka on Blitz. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to me rant and rave on. I hope you get a little bit of love out of this video. I'll be doing more of these advanced tactic classes for other tanks as we progress because, to be honest, I've done so many reviews now. I think we've got about 60 odd reviews in the can. It's time to start looking at maybe a little bit above and beyond and refining the gameplay. As always, humans, stay safe on the battlefield.